time.
No, they don't?
Yes, they do.
No,
they
they
do.
don't.
They use executive orders all the time.
An executive order doesn't mean that you are taking power away from the departments and offices that have been created.
Right, so where's the fascism here?
In this video, Destiny debates Andrew Wilson on the Jubilee channel. Andrew Wilson and Destiny argue over the definitions of fascism and authoritarianism. With that, let's watch Andrew Wilson use Destiny's own words against him for an easy victory.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Destiny. Destiny, can you define fascism?
I would say the two big points for fascism would be ultranationalism and authoritarianism.
Okay, what is authoritarianism?
I would say that authoritarianism is trying to centralize as much power in like a structural sense into one part of the government, and then in a broader sense, it usually means undermining a bunch of liberal values that you would find, like, say, in the first.
So then how is it that every part of the government which accrues more and more power to itself every single year aren't a bunch of fascists?
Because the government gaining power doesn't necessarily make it fascist. You could say there might be governmental overreach.
I'm still not even sure. What is fascist here, Destiny? What is fascist?
So
Giovanni Gentili, we have definitions of what fascism is. We have third partyists who are out there right now who are fascist. They claim Trump is a populist. Can you tell me why they're wrong and why you're right that he's a fascist?
Well, I would have to know their exact reasons for why they reject Trump being a fascist, but I would say that Trump is a fascist because I think he's an ultranationalist and an authoritarian.
These are your claims.
I'm not claiming anything that those people said. I've given you my definition for fascist. I gave the two parts. I can explain them more if you want.
So let's start with ultra-authoritarian.
Well, I said ultranationalist and authoritarian.
What is ultranationalism?
So I think ultranationalism is when you engage in a hardcore protectionist ideology that usually involves shutting yourself out from the rest of the world. That could be in forms of international affairs like military conflicts, and it could be in the forms of ultra-protectionist in terms of trade and shutting down things like immigration in order to protect your own native peoples. So, oftentimes there's a heavily racialized element, but it might not have to be.
Okay, well, Donald Trump, you're not saying has a heavy racialized element, are you?
I'm ambivalent. I don't really care that much. I think that he qualifies or satisfies the term without that. But
okay, so let's dive into this real quick.
Well, an oldie but a goodie. We're going back to define fascism and authoritarianism and trying to label Donald Trump as such. So the things that Destiny said, unless I missed something negative, everything I heard him say about ultranationalism is positive. I think that United States should be protectionist. So I don't know if I don't understand the meaning, because he says that means you don't really interact with the rest of the world, but we partner and want to partner in good faith, unlike our current trade agreements, but we want to partner and have allies all over the world. So the other things that Destiny talked about was immigration that usually has a racialized element, and then acknowledge that it really doesn't in Trump's case. Every country on earth closes their borders to non-citizens. Why do they do that? Because they want to keep their country's identity and their country's values so that their people, even if they're divided on everything else, under their shared values in that country. When you let a bajillion people in, they have no incentive to assimilate to your culture. Well, I take it back. There's some incentive, but they don't have to. And that just waters down the culture of your country. You can't have a country with 15 dominant cultures. It just won't work. So bringing in more immigrants to your country literally weakens your country. It costs your country money. So that's not in the best interest of your country's people. So if that's ultranationalist, then you could... that's one of the traits he listed that could apply to so many countries around the world. But we're suddenly racist and the bad guys when we don't want to let everybody and their brother in our country. All right, I went too long on this one. I'll get to his other points, but let's get back to the video.
If you have a president who doesn't want to get involved in foreign affairs as far as wars go, and has some type of policies which benefit the United States over all of the nations, is he a fascist?
No.
Well, I'm still confused as to what makes Trump a fascist.
That's because I had two parts of that, and you missed the authoritarian one.
Yeah,
what you described there before was just like protection.
Well, when you said authoritarian, what is he doing, which is accumulating all power to himself?
So he's trying to centralize power in the executive branch of the government, and specifically in the presidential part of the government, of the executive branch.
How?
How Donald Trump thinks that he should be able to unilaterally make decisions up and down all of the different departments and offices that exist in the executive branch.
Presidents use executive orders all the time.
That's not what an executive order is.
Presidents unilaterally make decisions all the time.
No, they don't?
Yes, they do.
No,
they do. They use executive orders all the time.
An executive order doesn't mean that you are taking power away from the departments and offices that have been created.
Right. So where's the fascism here?
Would you like me to give you specific examples?
Yes, give me the specific example.
Sure. So when Donald Trump didn't like the answer that he was getting from his attorney general because he was trying to direct direct the Department of Justice to do investigations or to fabricate claims, that would be an example of trying to centralize power just to the president, because he's undermining his own department that's been created for him, that's supposed to have some level of independence, that's tasked with doing investigations.
Let me ask you a question. Is the President of the United States the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States?
I believe so.
You believe so?
Unless something's changed.
Do they
recently,
have
yeah.
do they have control of the entire military apparatus, essentially, as the
As
Commander-in-Chief?
the Commander-in-Chief, yes.
Yeah. Is that fascist?
No.
So they have basically almost unilateral control by your own metrics of the most mighty military on planet Earth. That's not accumulating enough power, centralized control to one person. It's the fact that he tried to slay some fucking electors. Really?
So the president being the commander-in-chief is specifically laid out in the Constitution. That's an authority granted to him.
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
I don't know what's fascist about
Well, because
that,
you said it's ultra power. It's this idea of
I
having,
didn't say anything about
central
the
power.
military.
If you have the central
I
power,
didn't ever bring that up for him, but
if you have the central power
yeah.
of the most mighty military on planet Earth and the codes to the largest nuclear armament on planet Earth, you already have all of the central power, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
How do the nuclear codes help you
Yeah.
direct your Department of Justice?
Okay, I'm sorry. Is he the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces?
Are you just arguing that he's the commander? I already agree with you. I don't know why you keep arguing.
What I'm arguing to you is
I'm asking you, how does the Commander-in-Chief use the military
to ask me? It's your claim.
I can ask whatever you want.
About your claim,
So
and your claim is
how does that make him control the DOJ? How does the military help him control the DOJ?
Back up. That is the most powerful position I can think of for you to be in, period. How could
That's
you
a powerful
accumulate-
position.
what
That's a
more-
powerful-
What more accumulation of power would you want for a fascist dictator?
Gotcha. Okay, so that's powerful in that you controlled the military. That's it. That's just control of the military.
Yeah.
For the FBI coming to your house to
It's fascist, isn't it, Destiny, to take control of the DOJ and use it to attack political enemies? Like, remember when Joe Biden kept classified documents at his home that he shouldn't have? Under his DOJ, he got investigated and the whole thing got dismissed because he's a well-meaning old man. Now, that same Department of Justice, when Donald Trump was accused of the same thing that Joe Biden did, what happened to him? His house was raided with guns drawn on his entire family. So I'd argue absolutely that scenario that I just described is fascist. How about Biden's DOJ when Eric Adams, the second he said one thing about illegal immigration and that it was a problem, and that went against the mainstream establishment liberal narrative, what happened to him? Department of Justice goes after him. Wow, that timing is really odd, isn't it? I think that's a fascist use of the DOJ. And by the way, Destiny, the president is allowed to use executive orders. I guarantee you weren't complaining about any president other than Donald Trump utilizing their ability to sign executive orders. And let's look at a scenario right now. Let's do a test and see if Donald Trump is authoritarian, where he's centralized all the power to the executive branch. Do you think that's happening right now? Because he's trying to deport people and district judges are making decisions for the entire country. So there are checks and balances in the system that are a good thing, but then you also have district federal judges hindering the president of the United States from delivering on his promises from the campaign trail. If Donald Trump was authoritarian, do you think we'd still have all the illegal immigrants here that we do? Or do you think on day one, 20 million of them, or week one, 20 million of them would be gone from our country, right? So his power ain't that centralized. He's got freaking pointed district judges stopping him and his administration from aggressively trying to achieve their goals. I mean, guys, like, and then to Andrew's point about him being commander-in-chief of the military, Andrew's pointing out that that's the most lethal, effective fighting force in the world, and Donald Trump is in charge of it. So he's saying based on Destiny's definition, that makes Donald Trump authoritarian because he does have the ultimate power. Not to mention, if Donald Trump was authoritarian, he could say, screw what any judge says, screw what any federal courts say. I'm going to bring in the military and just do a full-scale raid of the entire country and get all the illegal immigrants out. He has that ability to do that. An authoritarian gets everything they want when they want it. Donald Trump, that doesn't work that way because we have a government with checks and balances. We have an entire other political party doing everything they can to make sure that this man fails. We have a media in our country that takes marching orders from the Democrat Party and does everything they can to brainwash the public of this country. So honestly, this used to be an easy one to argue leading up to the election, but it's actually easier now that Trump's in office. And it's just like, if Donald Trump was an authoritarian, you would know it. But what do you guys think? I mean, does Donald Trump fit any of the definitions that Destiny or criteria that Destiny put into his definition? And did you think Andrew Wilson did a good job of using his words against him? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.